You're watching Study with Sudhir. This is your digital classroom. I am T.S. Sudhir. We are going to be now taking a look at the long Bassanio Casket scene, which is Act 3, Scene 2. And we are going to be doing this in 4 parts because I believe in rather detailed explanations, and also it takes a lot of energy in order to actually get into the scene and explain to you each of the themes and the words and the different meanings, right? Also give you tips from an examination point of view. So I'm going to be doing this in 4 parts, just like we had done the trial scene Act 4 in 5 parts. Okay, so that each video is not too bulky in that sense. A bulky 40-minute, 45-minute kind of video can be a little putting off. Okay, so we are going to be doing this in 4 parts. So this scene is taking place in Porschia's house in Belmont. We've already done the 2 scenes of Morocco and Aragon, the 2 princes who end up choosing the wrong casket, the gold casket and the silver casket. So now what's left in the lead is a lead casket, and we'll have to see whether Bassanio manages to choose the right casket or not. So Porshia begins, and you see what's significant about the Bassanio casket scene is how Porshia actually displays a very different kind of a demeanor in this particular scene when Bassanio is there, as opposed to how her demeanor was, how she conducted herself when Prince of Morocco and the Prince of Aragon were there in the 2 scenes in Act 2. So this is a sharp contrast, and you need to bring that out if you get a piece of dialogue from this particular scene to show and highlight how Portia was different as well. Portia says, I pray to you to wait and pause for a day or 2. Day or 2 is significant, and I'll tell you why. Before you hazard as in you choose one of the 3 caskets, because if you choose wrong, if you choose the wrong casket, I will lose your company almost immediately. Therefore, you kind of display some patience, wait for some time. There is something that tells me, but I know that it's not love. There is something that tells me, but it's not love. I would not lose you, and you know yourself, hate counsels not in such a quality. In the sense that if I was having a feeling of hatred towards anyone, I would not be getting this kind of a feeling inside me. So it could be love, right? But it's not love. So she's saying this, but not saying it in a kind of suggesting a very confused state of mind, or at least that's the way she expresses herself, right? But lest you should not understand me well, and yet a maiden hath no tongue but thought, I would detain you here some month or 2. Earlier she says a day or 2, to wait for a day or 2. The same dialogue later on she says a month or 2, again conveying that she's kind of saying a lot of things without probably applying her mind, which is in sharp contrast to the personality we saw in Act 2, to the personality that we will see in Act 4 in the trial scene, also the kind of Portia, to the very clear-headed Portia that we will see in the court scene. So Portia of the Bassanio Casket scene is essentially overwhelmed by her feelings for Bassanio, right? Which is why we see a very different kind of Portia out here, and these lines essentially reflect that particular personality. Before you venture for me, I could teach you how to choose right, but then I am forsworn, in the sense that I could tell you which is the right casket, but then I am under oath that I can't possibly do that in order to favor a particular suitor, though it's very obvious that she would want Bassanio only to choose the right casket, which is why we saw a feeling of delight when both Morocco and Aragon chose the wrong caskets. So will I never be, so you may you miss me, but if you do, you will make me wish a sin that I had been forsworn, in the sense that while I am bound by an oath that I can't be telling you which is the right casket, but then if you kind of wish a sin that I had been forsworn, I wish I could actually commit the sin of breaking my promise, so that I could ensure that you do not choose the wrong casket. So you understand the kind of muddled nature of her mind, which is what is finding expression in these dialogues. Beshrew your eyes that have overlooked me and divided me. One half of me is yours, the other half yours. Mine own, I would say, but if mine, then yours. So all yours. So she says that you have kind of cast a spell on me. So basically she's expressing the fact that she is deeply and madly in love with Bassanio, that you have cast a spell on me, that one half of me is actually belonging to you, the other half belongs to me, but what belongs to me is also yours, which means that I am completely yours. These lines are important from an examination point of view, because you could then be asked the relationship between Portia and Bassanio. Okay, so it could lead to an entire gamut of interesting questions. So please look at these lines carefully from an examination point of view as well. So all yours, all these naughty times, put bars between owners and their rights, and so though yours, not yours, prove it so, let fortune go to hell for it, not I. I speak too long, but it is to pace the time, as in to pass the time, prolong this period of waiting, which she has already said a day or two or a month or two. So basically she says that these naughty times that are making things worse for her, this whole thing of anticipation, tension, anxiety, concern, the fear that Bassanio may also, like Morocco and Aragon, choose the wrong casket, and they are actually putting a whole lot of barriers, right, between the owner and their rights. In this case, she says very clearly that Bassanio is the owner of Porshia, though it may seem a bit of a sexist kind of line, but remember, we are also talking about a different era, in the era that William Shakespeare wrote in. At that time, Portia says that I belong to you, and this whole times are actually putting a barrier between you, the owner, and what you actually own, right? And that means referring to herself. So she says that if this particular thing proves, if the circumstances prove that I am not yours, then let fate be blamed for it. Let fate be blamed for it and not I, because as far as I am concerned, I think I belong to you, that is Bassanio. And then she realizes that she is speaking too long, and as I said, in sharp contrast to how she behaved in Morocco and Aragon's presence, she realizes that she is speaking a lot, but she also says that it's only to prolong the time. So basically, in a nutshell, saying that she does not want to lose him, and he must judge for himself, because she knows that hatred is not likely to prolong this kind of a feeling that she is expressing towards Bassanio at that point in time, and she wants him to wait for a while, take his time before he chooses the particular casket. And she says that now she is overcome by this kind of, maidenly modesty, the modesty of a young girl, and therefore she cannot be expected to be disclosing all her emotions and feelings for this young man called Bassanio. And she says that she can only wish that he waited for some time before he decided on which casket to choose. So in these lines, she is making her feelings and emotions for Bassanio amply clear. She says that she cannot tell Bassanio which casket to choose because she is under oath to her father not to reveal the secret of the casket to any of the suitors, and therefore she cannot break her pledge, the promise that she has made. And since Portia will never break her promise that she has made to her father, therefore she cannot tell Bassanio which is the right casket. So as a result of which, it's quite possible, the possibility that he may lose her is always there. And if he loses her, he will make her wish that she had actually broken the promise that she made to her father and revealed which is the right casket to Bassanio. And that would be the sin that will be there in her mind. So she feels that she can sin because she loves Bassanio. So basically revealing her the muddled nature of her mind. She also says that she is under Bassanio's spell ever since Bassanio's eyes set on Portia, and the whole thing of, one half of it belongs to Bassanio, the other half belongs to Portia, but what belongs to Portia also belongs to Bassanio. Okay, so I hope this entire portion of Portia's dialogues, as I said, important from an examination point of view, are pretty clear. So she says to add to it and to draw out in length to stay you from election. So basically I am kind of passing the time in order to prolong this particular time so that it takes some more time before you choose the casket. Bassanio is not willing to wait. He says, let me choose, for as I am, I live upon the rack. Now the rack was an instrument during William Shakespeare's time, which basically was a frame where people were stretched on before they were made to confess to whatever crime that they had committed. So he's kind of trying to play on the same words, that it's almost equivalent to me being on the rack, which is a time when you are actually on the rack, and it is kind of a period of agony, because you are being made to wait before you actually confessed to whatever crime that you committed. And now Portia decides to play on the word rack. She says, upon the rack, Bassanio, then confess what reason there is mingled with your love. So she says that while Bassanio wants to make the choice straight away, because he says it is almost being in torment, this whole period of suspense of not knowing which casket really contains Portia's portrait and therefore is the correct casket. So Portia, while she teases Bassanio by saying that if he feels he is upon the rack, then he must confess what kind of disloyalty that is there in his love, right? And the rack, as I said, is being used in a metaphorical sense out here, because he says that he is being tortured by that sense of uncertainty, because he does not know which is the right casket. But Portia, what she does is she kind of pretends that she is taking the rack in its literal sense, not in its metaphorical sense, but in its literal sense. So she says, and she teases Bassanio, saying that he must be a traitor, he must have indulged in some kind of treason or disloyalty, and therefore he must confess the disloyalty which is mixed up with his feeling of love. Bassanio says, none out that ugly treason of mistrust which makes me fear the enjoying of my love. There may as well be amity and life between snow and fire as treason and my love. So basically he says that there is no disloyalty at all as far as his love is concerned, and he says the only disloyalty is the anxiety and the apprehension and the fear that he may lose out on Portia's love. Okay, and he says that there can be no possibility of friendship between disloyalty and his love for Portia, between treason and his love for Portia, and he compares it with snow and fire, because snow and fire also cannot live amicably together. So just like snow and fire cannot coexist, because snow will obviously melt because of the intensity of the fire, similarly treason and his love for Portia cannot coexist. Okay, I hope it's clear till here. Even these 4 lines of Bassanio can come as an examination question. But I fear, and when something like this is given, the expectation is that you would be able to not just place it in context, but also be able to explain the backstory and what happens after that. That is what is expected from you as far as Merchant of Venice answers are concerned. Portia, but I fear you speak upon the rack where men enforced do speak anything. So basically she says that I fear that you are speaking under pressure, and enforce essentially means a feeling of compulsion, that you are being compelled or forced to say anything, right? Bassanio says, promise me Portia's love, that is life is Portia, life is being equated with his love for Portia, and I will confess the truth. He says, promise me life, basically promise to spare my life, right? Basically Portia tells Bassanio that what he says is all absolutely fine with her, but she has to take his declaration with a bit of caution. So a lot of wordplay being indulged, playful wordplay being indulged between, banter being indulged between Bassanio and Portia. So since he has confessed that he is upon the rack, he must have made his statement under some kind of pressure. So she is still going by the literal meaning of the rack, and therefore it cannot be trusted as the protestations of all those people who are tortured while they are put on the rack in order to confess to their crime. And he says, she says that they will end up declaring anything and tell any number of lies in order to save their lives. So she is basically teasing him in a very playful manner that she does not believe that he is speaking the truth, right? So Bassanio says that if Portia assures him that she will give him life, which is essentially Portia's love, he will declare the truth to her because he loves her very dearly. Okay, so basically on the rack, people would be put on there in order to confess to whatever crime they had committed, and this is what Bassanio is kind of replying, that if you give me life, which is Portia's love, I will also confess. Bassanio says, confess and love had been the very sum of my confession. O happy torment, when my torture doth teach me answers for deliverance, but let me to my fortune and the casket. So he says, let me now go to the caskets. Well, Portia says that she keeps up the metaphor of getting Bassanio to confess, and then his life will be spared. Okay, so he says that he would much rather go and choose whichever casket he needs to choose, whichever he thinks is the right casket where Portia's portrait would be there. And he says that his torture is actually delightful because the person who is torturing him is Portia, the lady he loves. Okay, and she is the one who will deliver him of all the torture. When you say, I am locked in one of them, Portia says, away then, I am locked in one of them. If you do love me, you will find me out. Nerissa and the rest stand all aloof. Let music sound while it doth make his choice. Then if he lose, he makes a swan-like end, fading in music, that the comparison may stand more proper. My eye shall be the stream, and watery deathbed for him he may win. Now, this is a significant piece of dialogue by Portia. Again, you see she being actually indulging in a lot of dialogue in sharp contrast to the scenes in Act 2. It's almost like she's not in control of what she is speaking. She's not in control of her tongue, which is making her speak much more than she's usually given to speaking. So she says that yes, my face photograph is in one of the caskets, and if Bassanio truly loves her, he would be led to the correct casket, to the right casket. And she says, Portia says that you will find me out, because basically now after Morocco and Aragon's experience, Portia has realized that the choosing of the casket that has been decided by her father is really a true test of character, and now she believes in the wisdom of whatever this whole lottery scheme that was decided, the casket scheme which was decided by her father, and whoever loves her rightly will end up choosing the right casket. Now she tells Nerissa that everyone should stand at a distance while Bassanio goes about choosing the right casket, and she tells them to do so so that he does not get any kind of hint, so that she doesn't want to be committing the sin of helping Bassanio in any way in order to choose the right casket, and she wants the music to be played. Now, why does the music need to be played at this point in time? Again, significant, because one reason is that her heart is obviously a flutter right now. You realize that this is not the Portia we have known so far, right? And this is not the Portia that we will see in the court scene also. So this is a very uncharacteristic Portia, and she wants to calm down herself, calm down her nerves at this point in time, and she feels that music will actually help in doing so. And while Bassanio is choosing the casket, so because her anxiety levels will obviously be very high, but she does not want to reveal her tension, and therefore she feels that the music will help mask her anxiety at that point in time. She also says that if Bassanio fails, then if he lose, he makes a swan-like end. If he fails, it will be like his swan song. You know the phrase, whenever say, that was, a cricketer who is going to retire and he hits a century in his last innings. That was his swan song. A swan, before it dies, it always sings, which is why the word comes, it was his swan song. So it will be like the swan which sings before it dies. But if Bassanio succeeds, then the music will add to the atmosphere of festivity and celebration and joy, and will make everybody happy at that point in time. Now, the metaphor of the dying song is also important in the sense that Portia says that her eyes, which will be streaming with tears, will also serve as the river on which the swan can be swimming, right? So that's how she's extending the entire metaphor of the swan and this song. And just as the river is becomes the deathbed of the dying swan, so will be her tears will be some kind of a river for the fact that Bassanio is not able to choose the right casket in case if he meets with failure. So that's what is the entire importance or the significance of the metaphor of the swan and this song, this swan song, right? Of course, if Bassanio is successful, then what is music then? Then music is even as the flourish when true subjects bow to a new crowned monarch, such it is as are those dulcet sounds in break of day that creep into the dreaming bridegroom's ear and summon him to marriage. Now he goes with no less presence but with much more love. But in case Bassanio is successful and succeeds in choosing the right casket, then this particular music that is being played will essentially be like the flourish of trumpets. Trumpets, again, something which has that kind of a sound which conveys a lot of joy and celebration, especially when a king is newly crowned, right? It has that kind of a tone and tenor and sound to it. So it says, she says that it will represent the sweet notes of music which will actually awaken the sleeping bridegroom on the day, on the morning of his marriage, and tell him and inform him that his wedding day has actually arrived. Now basically this is a reference to the old British custom, which basically meant that music would be played below the window of the room where the bridegroom would be sleeping in order to wake him up and inform him about his pending wedding. So now at this time she compares him with Hercules or Alcides. You know, those are the two names for which are used for Bassanio, Hercules or Alcides, and he is basically a Greek god who was famous, popular for his strength, manliness and different daring exploits. Okay, then young Alcides, when he did redeem the virgin tribute paid by howling Troy to the sea monster, I say stand for sacrifice, the rest aloof are the Dardanian wives, the bleared visages come forth to view the issue of the exploit. Go Hercules, live thou, I'll live, with much more dismay I view the fight, than thou that makest the fray. Now you don't need to know in too much of detail, right? That would not really be expected, but you need to know if this kind of lines come as to why does she compare him with Hercules. Now the Hercules, who is the son of Alces, which is why the other name of Alcides is also used for him, he rescued a lady called Hesione, okay, Hesione, who is the unmarried daughter of the Trojan king. You know the story of Troy. And basically so that she is not sacrificed to a sea monster, right? And he did not do so because of his love for Hesione, but because he wanted to get horses offered as a reward to him, that is Hercules. And Portia basically is comparing herself to Hesione and Bassanio as Hercules, acting out of love for Portia, not out of love for the horses, but out of love for Portia. So she makes this comparison between Portia and Bassanio to Hesione and Hercules or Alcides. Okay, so howling essentially is basically wailing. Okay, so and the Dardanian wives are the Trojan women who are the descendants of Dardanus, who is the founder of the kingdom of Troy. Okay, so that's the comparison, the Greek comparison which has been made in this piece of dialogue by Portia. Again, a very long piece of dialogue. Bleared visages essentially means faces which are stained as a result of crying, as a result of tears, right? So she says, I view the fight, than thou then makest the fray. So she says she wants him to go ahead and be in the fight and engage himself in the fight, and then the music is played. Now Portia says Bassanio to go ahead and choose the casket, and she says that if he lives, that is if he succeeds, then she lives. If he fails, it is like death to her, and she watches the test with as much interest as Bassanio himself, right? And if Bassanio does not succeed, then like Hercules, like Hesione, she may also be given to the sea monster. So that's the kind of comparison that has been made, because if he fails, then she may end up marrying someone else who she is not really interested in. Tell me, where is fancy bred, or in the heart or in the head? How big out, how nourished? Reply, reply. It is engendered in the eyes, with gazing fed, and fancy dies in the cradle where it lies. Let us all ring fancy's knell. I will begin it. Ding dong bell, all ding dong bell. Now look at the specific words that have been used. Bred, head, nourished, okay, fed. So if you see all of them, they are rhyming with what word? They are rhyming with lead. So this is being seen as some kind of a hint that is being offered as part of the music to Bassanio. Now it's a different matter whether Bassanio is actually listening to it in the first place or not, but it seems that some kind of a hint is being given, being offered to Bassanio while he is choosing the particular casket. So these are all words which are rhyming with lead. The other thing is that the song is also giving a warning, right? Because the word used is fancy bread or in the heart or in the head, right? So basically saying that do not judge by the eyes alone, that is by outward appearance. Again saying that do not go by the outward appearance, and outward appearance, as we have seen in the case of Morocco and Aragon, is what? To choose the gold and the silver casket. So basically to say that you need to kind of look at the real worth instead of just going by outward appearance. Now as I said, it's not very clear whether he's actually listening to all this what is being offered as hints in the song, or is he just busy talking to himself. Again also we know that Portia is bound by oath not to help any of the suitors including Bassanio, so she cannot do it openly, right? And she's already said that to Bassanio that she's under oath not to help any of the suitors. So that is the significance of the music which is being played out here. So the significance of the music is what makes the opening part of Act 3 Scene 2, the Bassanio Casket scene, that much significant. And if any of the dialogues come from here in your examination, make sure that you also talk about the music and the significance of the music that is played and the kind of things that Portia says in this particular piece of Act 3 Scene 2. We will continue with our analysis of Act 3 Scene 2 in Part 2, Part 3 and Part 4 of the Bassanio Casket scene. It is one of the most significant casket scenes which you need to understand very, very thoroughly in order to be able to do justice to your answers in the examination. Thank you very much for watching.